So the lines of human and machine are blurring. But before we get into that, I want us to take a step back. There is a thought experiment known as the Ship of Theseus, or it's also known as the Theseus paradox. And it's this thought experiment that's based in Greek mythology. And it's the question whether an object is the same object, whether you replace all of the parts in it with new ones. And so typically this is proposed as like an incremental change of replacing each of the parts over time. And so Theseus was this mythical king of Athens who saved the children of Athens from King Minos, and then he escapes on this ship to Delos. And the Athenians would commemorate this every year annually by taking the ship and sailing to Delos to honor the god Apollo. And so ancient philosophers began to ask this question, that if you replace all of the pieces on this ship one by one, and no pieces of the original ship remain, but are all new, is it still the Ship of Theseus? And if it is no longer the Ship of Theseus, at what point did it stop being so? And so our conversation today, what I want us to think about is how this applies to the philosophical study of personal identity, especially when it comes to human biological technologies. And so I want us to apply this to a thought experiment of our own. And so let's call our hypothetical thought experiment candidate, test subject, whatever you want to call them. Let's call it Grandpa Jones, right? And so Grandpa Jones is getting up there a little bit. Maybe he had kids young, but maybe let's say he's in his 40s or 50s. I don't know. And so he's got, we'll call him Grandpa, and he's not that old, but his knees are pretty messed up. And so he played football, had a hard sports career growing up, and so he needs new knees. So Grandpa goes in and he doesn't just get new titanium knees. He goes and gets these new, fresh out of the experiments and fresh out of the lab, these new upgraded bionic powerful titanium knees that have extra powers and abilities. We don't have to get into what they are. They're just not normal titanium replacement knees. So is he still my grandpa? And then, Grandpa was in a terrible accident. And so Grandpa, he was out riding his motorcycle because he loves to live an adventurous life. And Grandpa was in this accident and he crashed, and now he needs to replace both hips and his shoulders. And so he uses that same technology, those same new titanium bionic upgraded powerful joints, these new things. Is he still my grandpa? And so all of this is taking a toll on Grandpa. And let's be honest, Grandpa hasn't really been eating the greatest. And so his heart's not doing the best. And so the next year, Grandpa has to go in and he has to get a pacemaker put in. Is he still my grandpa? And then this new procedure came out that Grandpa had to go in and get his DNA worked on, and it allowed him to undergo some genetic editing to take out any potential cancers and diseases in his bodies. And so they're going in and they're doing this work, and they've changed his blood and his DNA. Is he still my grandpa? And so now this is probably the worst part of all. Grandpa lived in this little town, and right next door was this big, mean, evil, toxic chemical company, and they would dump their toxic sludge, and it penetrated the underground aquifer, and it got into the water, and it contaminated the soil in the area. And really, Grandpa was exposed to this for years, and so there was a big lawsuit. The toxic chemical company got sued, they lost, and so now they have to pay for this expensive painful, terrible operation for Grandpa, and he's got to go in and he's getting an entire organ replacement. But this is our hypothetical situation. We're talking about science and technology. These aren't just like getting new organs and insides from people that have died, right? This is well into the future. And so Grandpa gets these new farmed organs that are coming, that are more durable and less prone to disease and malfunction in our body like a normal organ. And so Grandpa gets all of these new organs in his body that are farmed synthetic organs. Is he still my grandpa? I don't know. And so then Grandpa his eyes haven't been very good. He can't quite see that well. And so he's been wearing glasses for a long time, but the glasses aren't keeping up anymore. And so eventually Grandpa goes and gets these new bionic upgraded optics in his eyes. And so now Grandpa can see as well as some of the best animal eyesight in the world, right? And so he can see movements far away. He can see crisp and clear. He can see all of these things. Is he still my grandpa? And so as we're thinking about this, you can kind of see like where this is going. And because obviously, one, none of these operations are available yet. None of these things are available at this time. But we can see where this is going. And there's a whole field of study when it comes to bio-advancement of human biology, right? Of technological advancement of human biology. And this is known as transhumanism. And we're not going to get into what transhumanism is today, and we're not going to look at it that way. But it's this spectrum, right, that people are seeking anywhere from just small upgrades to human biology all the way up to uploading our brains onto a computer. And so, but that's what transhumanism is. And this, as we think about this thought experiment with basically becoming human cyborgs, we have to think about the Ship of Theseus of at what point are we no longer ourselves? At what point do we stop being ourselves? And so our science and our technology will continue to advance until these things are available to us at some point. We're already seeing different upgrades being available in joint replacement. We're seeing upgrades be available with different parts of our body and with pacemakers, and our technology is getting better. But at what point do we stop being ourselves, just like the Ship of Theseus? There was a movie back in the 80s or 90s, I can't remember the exact date, but RoboCop. I loved watching RoboCop whenever I was younger, but I haven't watched it in many, many moons. But Alex Murphy was this police officer who has this terrible incident that happens, and then they take his body and they put him into this robot encasement, right? And make him into RoboCop. But then his mind starts remembering and having flashbacks of his previous life. Was he still Alex Murphy, or was he RoboCop? And so they kind of wrestle with that throughout the movie. But for us, at what point would we stop being ourselves? Or would we ever stop being ourselves? Or would we still continue to be ourselves? And so as we engage with these identity shifting technologies, these are things that we will have to begin to wrestle with, right? That at what point, if I get enough upgrades and enough changes in my body, will I stop being myself? Or will I ever stop being myself? And so if we continue to think about the Ship of Theseus and us becoming human cyborgs, that's the question we have to ask. So I want you to think about that and leave me a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. If when in that process we would stop, is it 50%? Is it 60%? Is it 85%, 90%, 92%? Like what percent of us, at what point would we stop being ourselves? Or would we ever stop being ourselves? So let me know in a comment below what your thoughts are, and we'll kind of wrestle this out together. All right, friends, hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.